In Colombia, President Gustavo Petro launched the Government with Popular Neighborhoods initiative. The United Nations denounces Israel's denial of access to the Rafah crossing point in Gaza. And in Russia, President Vladimir Putin was sworn in to officially take office as head of state for the next 6 years. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, opened the initiative known as the Government with Popular Neighborhoods. The plan, which aims at assessing, monitoring and accelerating the implementation of programs, projects and investments, was opened at the Ensueño Theater in the Bolivar City, Bogotá. Alongside several members of the executive team, including Vice President Francia Márquez, President Petro announced an array of measures to benefit impoverished communities and denounced acts of corruption in his administration.
Officials fell into the temptation to save their penalties by accusing. And some very famous lawyers for their intellectual line took the matter into their hands. And some are extorting officials under the thesis constructed journalistically by the usual lady that the president bribed with public money congresspersons to approve the reform. And that is false, and it has to do with a coup strategy.
The President of Colombia explained there is an erroneous way of analyzing poverty, even statistically, and that it is not always possible to analyze it.
There is a statistical error in constructing the poverty maps as if they were exclusively national territorial segregation and not to see the segregation of the big cities. It exists in all cities, but it is greatest in the big capitals of Colombia where the greatest number of poor people are concentrated, and this is the optical illusion that being in the excluded domestic territory, we forget the greatest number of poor people.
In Venezuela, new voices have joined the national rejection of the coercive measures that Joe Biden's regime is implying to the South American nation, while billboards condemning the United States aggressions have been erected in different parts of Caracas. A correspondent in the city, Roberto Hugo Presa, has more details.
The youth raised their voice of condemnation against the blockade imposed by the United States on Venezuela. These young people are clear that they must join a citizens' campaign to shout out the U.S. government that the sanctions are illegal, inhuman, and criminal.
La juventud rechaza las sanciones impuestas.
The youth rejects the sanctions imposed by imperialism, by the United States. But beyond rejecting, here they are, these young people. Many young people left, but they decided to stay. We decided to stay and fight for our homeland. Despite the blockade, here are these young people who believe in the future, who believe in Venezuela, who believe in the revolution, but who also move forward so that every day youth policies are better.
They believe that all media resources should be used to raise awareness nationally and internationally and to spread a message of repudiation.
The alternative media that we achieved with President Chavez, that is to say, the alternative radio stations. The alternative media, how do we use all these tools to attack these measures? How do we use the networks, how we viralize all the consequences? The whole issue of the victims, just like the issue of Palestine, which has gone viral everywhere because of the bombings. Well, our people are also receiving bombs. A hospital that is not receiving supplies because of the blockade is a bomb that falls on the hospital.
Other sectors also joined the rejection of the United States. The inhabitants of Kosher Parish took to the streets massively to demonstrate and send a message to President Joe Biden.
Today we take to the streets, as always united, full of love, of hope, because we believe in the homeland and we are sure that the sanctions will never defeat us. They have had 1,000 sanctions against Venezuela, and we will always take to the streets to say that we are free, we are sovereign, and that our homeland defends itself.
I ask for the sanction to be removed so that we can have a country like a Venezuela deserve. Beyond that, we have been fighting against the empire for a long time. Since we come from the belly of our mother, I hope that Biden and the gringos understand this. Gringo, go home.
In various parts of the country, billboards have been erected with messages condemning the opposition leaders who promoted the sanctions. It is a citizens' campaign of repudiation in which they also warn that they will not be able to defeat the peoples of Venezuela. The messages are signed by the Venezuelan people.
Roberto Hugo Presta, teleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
And during an exclusive interview for a multi-platform teleSUR, Argentine journalist and writer Stella Colon that the government's decision to censor teleSUR's signal on open digital television is part of the political persecution that the country is experiencing.
Es una decisión claramente política.
This is a clearly political decision as a result of the political persecution that we are living in these moments. It was kind of foreseeable that teleSUR was bothering them infinitely, because this is a country where they are not allowing the channels to publish anything of international politics. Here, nothing is known, and the only thing that many of us could see was our own production. Of course, we journalists have other sources, but teleSUR was very important to us and to all of Latin America. We know this. Besides, Argentina is a partner of teleSUR from the beginning.
Stella Colon also said that the government is attacking the media, starting with the Telam news agency, whose headquarters have been closed indefinitely.
Communication has been persecuted from the beginning. Also, in Macri's government, the first thing they did was to end the whole new project of the audiovisual media law, so important for the country, because it was a democratizing law by essence. So the first thing he does is to attack the public media, to promise that the public media was going to disappear. Media like public television, radio, and the news agency Telam, which also, similar to this issue with teleSUR, they have decided to close all internal correspondence.
Brazilian President Lula da Silva sent to Congress a draft legislative decree establishing a public calamity in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. The death toll after heavy rains in the state rose to 90. Authorities also reported several people missing and considerable damage to infrastructure. The executive wants Parliament to authorize the transfer of resources to the regions hit by the strong storms without subjecting it to compliance with the fiscal rules. The measures include an extraordinary credit and the suspension of the monthly payment of its debt obligations, among other incentives. In the United States, the launch of Boeing's first crew mission to space was canceled before liftoff. Cape Canaveral Space Station reported that the launch of the Boeing Starliner scheduled for Monday night was aborted. Aboard the spacecraft were NASA test pilots Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams, and its final destination will be the International Space Station. The decision to abort the launch happened after the technical team detected failures in one of the oxygen valves of the riding rack on which the ship was mounted. According to the station, the launch team may try again on Friday. This is the latest delay of Boeing's first crew flight, which has been on hold for years due to problems with the capsule. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United Nations denounced Israel's denial of access to Rafah crossing point in Gaza. The multilateral body joins Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, Palestine, Belgium, and other governments and organizations denouncing Zionist operation and the current Shalom crossing. Israel has completely blocked the entry of humanitarian aid, as denounced earlier by several organizations that claim that Tel Aviv's real intention is to continue starving thousands of Palestinians. With timid protests from its allies in Washington and Paris, the Zionist government sees the border crossing in the midst of an unfinished negotiation process. Meanwhile, the Palestinian death toll from Israel's deadly aggression since October 7, 2023 has now surged to 34,789. At least 78,204 others have also been injured in the onslaught against the Gaza Strip. Medical sources on the ground reported that many victims are still trapped on the rubble and on the roads as rescuers are still unable to reach them. Rafah residents expressed their anguish after overnight Israeli attacks on Rafah having disrupted their celebrations over a possible ceasefire.
All the Palestinian people were overjoyed after Hamas approved a ceasefire proposal from Egyptian and Qatari mediators. Everyone felt an indescribable joy. People are suffocated and they couldn't believe for a moment that they were going to feel a sense of safety. We were surprised to see that it turned out to be a bloody night. Without joy or anything, they stole our joy. We couldn't be happy for over 2 hours. Our joy didn't last longer than 2 hours. There were surprising Israeli strikes with various goals. Using jets and artillery bombings, it was a terrifying night.
For their part, locals are hopeful that a ceasefire could end the suffering of the people of Gaza.
We hope for a ceasefire, even if just for a few moments, so that we can save our children, just to give them a period of rest, some time to rest. For us, for any human being, our greatest ambition in life is to build a house, to have a child, to raise that child, to send that child to school. For us, in one moment, our child is killed, our house is destroyed, our whole world is destroyed, and we lose everything in one moment.
On Tuesday, relatives of Israeli hostages held by Hamas issued an ultimatum to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to accept the ceasefire agreement already reached by the Palestinian resistance movement. In this regard, hundreds of Israelis rallied and blocked major local highways to warn the Tel Aviv government that they will intensify demonstrations if it does not accept the ceasefire proposal. The mobilization was called after it was learned that the Zionist government decided to advance militarily on Rafah despite Hamas' acceptance of the radius ceasefire agreement. For its part, Hamas warned that the Israeli deployment in the area, in addition to the humanitarian catastrophe for thousands of displaced Palestinians, also would put an end to any possibility of an agreement. The spokesman of the Qatari Foreign Ministry, Majid bin Mohammed Al-Ansari, informed Tuesday they will send a delegation to Egypt to continue the indirect negotiations between the Islamic resistance movement, Hamas, and Israel. In this sense, the representative expressed the delegation will be sent to El Cairo, the capital of Egypt. Precisely this moment was decided after the Hamas accepted the Egyptian and Qatari proposal for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, although Israel has not approved it and will instead announce the beginning of an evacuation campaign for civilians in Rafah, a measure that has been rejected by the international community. In other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin was sworn in to officially take office as head of state for the next 6 years. During his speech at the inauguration ceremony, President Putin did not hint who his candidate to prime minister might be. According to the Russian legislation, the head of state has until May 20th to propose to the State Duma a name to occupy this position. Putin focused his speech on issues related to his country's ability to succeed in any challenge. He highlighted his nation's ability to overcome current obstacles and his willingness to contribute to the construction of a new world scenario.
Today, we are essentially responding before our age-old history to our ancestors. You might think that they are unattainable heights, because they have put us ahead of the homeland. But know that for the tasks we have imposed on ourselves, we can only succeed with our country. Our homeland has achieved such triumphs and such successes that we are here today, and we see the future with confidence. We have already celebrated and we have completed projects and programs that allow a more powerful and dynamic development. We are a united and great people, and together we will overcome all obstacles. Everything is designed to succeed together.
The head of state insisted on the importance of a multipolar world for humankind.
We will continue to work on the creation of a new multipolar world. This world that is understood to adjust competitiveness in new horizons, as has happened many times in our history. It is important to remember the lessons, the tragic price. So it must be a strong system to face any challenges and threats.
President Putin reiterated that Russia will always favor respectful relations and dialogue with non-hostile nations.
We will be open to good relations with countries that see Russia as an efficient and honest partner, that is, with the majority of them. We do not engage in dialogue with Western governments, which try to delay the development of Russia with aggressive policies. They do not cease to pressure, they do not cease to exert pressure. I repeat, dialogues, including on security issues, are possible, but not from the point of view of violence or exclusion, but on an equal level with the partners of the Eurasian integration.
Putin also renewed his faith in young Russians and the importance of ensuring that they receive a good education so that they can fight for their country.
We will surely see the sustainable and independent development of the country. In this, the stability of our society must be flexible. It does not mean that it is inflexible, but we must continue to move forward. We see how the atmosphere is changing in the society. I will do everything so that people show their best human and professional nature, show their loyalty to the state, that people can work on the economy for the next decades. We must educate young generations to courageously defend Russia.
We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin American and Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. China's Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Yan said on Monday that China urged the Philippines to respect the new model for handling disputes over the Renai Reef. In this way, the spokesman insisted that the Philippines must respect previous commitments to maintain peace in the waters of the reef. In recent statements by Philippines National Security Advisor Eduardo Año, Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro and the Department of Foreign Affairs have denied any agreement with China, despite the fact that early on 2024 the Chinese side and the Philippines side agreed on a new model for resupply missions concerning the Renai Reef after multiple rounds of discussions. Inter-community clashes in the Abyei region between Sudan and South Sudan left at least 18 people killed and 8 others injured. Two neighboring communities accuse each other of aggressions. According to the Rumamer commissioner, armed youth, them from Twig County, carried out an attack over the weekend that killed 9 people. Previously, the regional authorities reported that youth from Abyei were responsible for various damages and robberies. Although South Sudan was experiencing a period of relative calm, inter-community conflicts are increasing. In Togo, President Faure Gnassingbé promoted a constitutional reform that changes the presidential system to a parliamentary one. The opposition accuses him of manipulating the laws in his favor. The head of state enacted this reform 1 week after his party's electoral victory, which could win 108 of the 113 seats in dispute. This controversial reform, approved on March 19th, has been harshly criticized because it eliminates the possibility for the Togolese to vote directly for their president, who will now be elected by the National Assembly, meaning that the president could remain in power indefinitely. Now, from the south, we go to sports. On Monday, Barbados initiated an agreement with Jamaica to receive assistance in the preparation of athletes and athletic trainers in order to raise the level of education in the country. In this regard, the Barbados Minister of Sports, Charles Griffith, stated that the project emerged as a result of conversations with his Jamaican counterpart, Olivia Grange, since Kingston, capital of Jamaica, had a similar collaboration with Trinidad and Tobago. He also stated that the idea of the agreement is to promote the exchange of experience in order to better train coaches and thus raise the quality standards in the preparation of athletes. We continue in the Caribbean, where it was announced on Tuesday that the Vice President of the Cuban Athletics Federation received the Golden Order of Merit awarded by World Athletics to the athlete Alberto Juan Torena, two-time Olympic champion in Montreal 1976, in addition of his achievement on the track and his leadership in the development of athletics in the world. Juan Torena served as one of the vice presidents of the Cuban Sports Institute for 28 years, and at the international level he was a member of the World Athletics Council from 1987 till 2023, serving with recognized success as vice president of the entity from 2015 to 2019. And on Tuesday, the UEFA Champions League returns with the Paris Saint-Germain versus Borussia Dortmund second leg semi-final. Dortmund beat PSG 1-0 at home in last week's game, setting them up nicely for Tuesday's return match in the French capital. Analysts gave us clear favorites with Enrique's squad, but after last week's performance, the scale is more balanced this time around. All eyes are now set on PSG star Kylian Mbappé, as he is seen as the key for the French club to reach the final. In 2013, Dortmund lost the final to Bayern Munich at Wembley, and there is the possibility that the two German giants could meet again in the same stadium. Meanwhile, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich gear up for their match on Wednesday. Madrid coach Carlo Ancelotti is searching for the formula to take his team's performance up several notches to get past Bayern to reach the final at Wembley. The Italian coach must find a way to restrain Bayern's wingers Leroy Sané and Jamal Musiala, who caused Madrid a constant headache in the first leg. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.